It's your boy, Mr. Skrilltown himself. And, tonight we got a very, very interesting and exciting show. We got my boy, Robert Ross, CEO of R&R Entertainment. He's a chairman on Mission Control Recordings. He's an entertainment attorney. Man, this guy does it all. When I say he does it all, he does it all. Let me turn down my phone because people are already blowing me up. But in the meantime, let me let you hear a little bit of something. I'm going to go over something, let y'all hear something, and then we're going to get right into the thick of things. Okay, so you know how everybody's like that you've been saying, everybody been wanting to know what we doing with it. Well, this is what we doing with it. This is the remix. I'm going to give you a little taste of it. Shout out to Excerpt Beats, Brecca, Josh Cox. The video's on the way. Soon as I become your ex, he'll become the sex friend. Don't make yourself look less than playing these silly games. Instead of speaking the truth, you repeating lies to my face. Like, I know that you've been saying he's your best friend. And of course, you know that's yours truly. I know that you've been saying he's your best friend. I know that you've been saying he's your best friend. Okay, so yeah, that's coming up. That we doing a video in September, flying them down. Excerpt Beats, Recca. We got a sponsorship going on with a lot of good things. They represent. I ain't gonna name any companies yet. I'm gonna wait till the video drops. I want all y'all to be aware. But what we gonna do right now is we're gonna get into this. Let me tell you about Robert Ross, man. I met Robert about close to a year ago. And, this guy is on top of things. He is the CEO of R&R Entertainment, LLC. He started, he said he started ways to facilitate the vision of future artists. As an attorney in the entertainment business, one of his main legal aspects is to provide a simple blueprint for up-and-coming artists to learn the power of maintaining ownership of their respective work. 25 years and counting, presented countless producers, artists, songwriters, and it's all a joy, honor, and no rush. He said to help facilitate a structure that moves the culture forward and help the mission of the client. And his experiences have taught him that there are different dynamics within his business. And one needs to be fully informed and up to date in order to solidify their position. That's all right, right there. Just what he just said is real talk. So let's go to some of his accomplishments. Senior Fellow, 100 Concerned Black Men Advisory Council. He's been appointed to the board of directors of Hoops, Helping Our Playgrounds. He's been a counsel of various imprints, served as co-counsel on the NARA's in Washington, D.C. chapter. Active voting member of NARA's. He's been a co-owner Eminem Publishing Company, licensed through Warner Music, negotiate deals with Viacom, Sony Pictures, Warner Brothers. He's had past partnerships with Sony and EMI, and recently secured 3 television deals with Viacom parent company Lionsgate Films. He's a legal counsel to previous and present reality TV personalities. He's the CEO of Mission Control Recordings and first look deal with, and he also has a first look deal with Paramount Pictures. So like I said, this is your man, my man, Robert Ross. What's going on, man?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Hey, man, I'm blessed. Hey, I'm blessed just to have you on the line, man.
Yeah, appreciate the invite. The invite. Thank you.
Well, see, and we was talking before we went on air, and one of the things we talked about was the fact that just because you may have not heard of somebody, don't mean that they ain't out here doing big and better things. It's like, that's what people got to get away from. The fact that, I may have not heard of him. This man right here has done tons of things. Just having a conversation with him offline, he was telling me with people that I didn't even realize he had worked with or dealt with. So, just going into things, we've already kind of went over what you've done. So just tell us what how did you decide to get into this type of work in this type of field?
I mean, it was actually completely by fluke. My background is finance. My undergrad degree is in finance. Shout out to Fisk University. I think when I moved to DC, I won't give the year, but when I moved to DC, I was kind of in a little bit of a quandary because I have a little bit of experience working on Wall Street. I had the privilege and honor of working for Reginald
Hello?
Lewis, who was an incredible, incredible mentor. And when I moved to DC, I was kind of in that little bit of a bind to determine if I was going to either go to get my MBA in finance or if I was going to ultimately decide to do something else. So I was interested in, first of all, being an environmental lawyer, which is interesting. Okay, I wanted to work for EPA and go that route. But my first year, shout out to my brother. My brother is a DJ in New York, and he has always been my constant influence in terms of being in the industry, And so ultimately, I decided, you know what, maybe going to law school for music is not such a bad idea. So, I went and double up on my major, and I did LLM, and I also did a JD, and the rest is history. That was 26 years ago. So 26 years in counting. Yeah. Super excited.
Wow. Okay. So, with us going into things and so are you originally from New York?
Yes. Born and raised from New York. From the boogie down first and foremost. My parents still live in the city. Yeah, my parents still live in New York. Rest of my family is spread a little bit across the country, but I am native New Yorker, man, and I'm excited because the label's based in New York. We're in the new World Trade Center building, so that's where the label is. Although I'm based in DC, we bounce back and forth, so I'm in New York quite frequently, and so the firm is based here. And the law and the record label is based in New York.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the record label. Tell us, how you got started, and how'd you come up with that vision for the record label? It looks like we got. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, sure.
Jacqueline Robinson. You want me to tap her in?
Oh no, that's my wife just listening to me.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe later she chooses to chime in, but nah, I think she might have just clicked on the wrong link. So so basically, I started the label in 2013 because it was a resource. First and foremost, MCR is really not a record label. What we are is a multi-tiered resource center in terms of the entertainment and tech space. I had a ton of clients that were signed to me legally, but they weren't getting no play. Nobody was interested in signing them, and I'm like, I started doubting my relationships because I'm like, wait a minute, man, I'm sitting with a decision maker, but yet no one is pulling the trigger. So ultimately, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to put together a resource to where artists as well as production and management companies, I had the relationships, but it just didn't make sense that everything wasn't clicking. So we brought everyone together, and I started the label in November 2013. And we started moving forward with first, the big mistake that I made was I started putting money behind folks that necessarily didn't want to be an artist. That's the first mistake I made. I was more excited about where they were going than they were, but they were great at other areas. So there were a couple of songwriters and a few others, but everybody's not cut out to be an artist, first and foremost. They have to really clearly understand what their mission is. And so, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last, 7 to 8 years, and now I'm retooling. So, we're a boutique firm, and the great thing about what we have is everything's underneath one roof. So from legal representation to AR/VR to tech to publishing to production and ultimately to business development, things of that nature. So super excited about where we're going.
So how growing up in New York in the boogie down Bronx, home of hip hop, how did that kind of like help you with the entertainment side of law, actually putting things together and becoming the CEO that you are today?
I think that's a good question. I think being from New York and being from the epicenter of just where hip hop is originally from, shout out to, KRS-One and Grandmaster Caz and, Grandmaster Flash and all of the, the epic OGs in the business. Being from New York, you always have an edge. I don't know what it is about New Yorkers, but even if let's say you're in the Midwest, and then all of a sudden you say you're from New York, and someone meets you from New York, there's an automatic kinship that locks in.
Right.
For me, I think knowing that I don't rap, I don't sing, I have this great ability. I'm a great negotiator. Negotiator, and I recognize that skill set when, I guess going through, following through, outside of law school with undergrad, and just realizing that there were areas where I was good at problem solving. I was good at alternative solutions. I was good at out of the box, real time solutions. I think that's maybe kind of where the skill set came from. And, over the last quarter of a century, I've been in front of it, mastering it,
Nice. Okay. So what brought you to DC from New York?
Personal things. I never wanted to move to DC. After undergrad, I worked on Wall Street for a few years. And after a failed relationship, a really good buddy of mine, who's still to this day a real good buddy of mine, said, "Come to DC." That was Memorial Day, late '89, '90, and
right.
I came, and that's all it took.
The rest is history.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
the rest is history.
Very much so.
So, going into being this CEO, this chairman, and all the big things that you've done and been a part of. Tell us about some of your accomplishments, thus far that you've had, in your career.
Well, I'll give you a quick story. I won't make it too long. My first deal was epic. Right after getting out of school, I met a young lady by the name of Candy. And if anybody's been in the business for a while, there used to be a music conference called How Can I Be Down that was put on by Peter Thomas, who is Cynthia Bailey's exes. He owns Bar One in North Carolina and in Miami Beach. He used to be on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Shout out to Pete. So I met this young lady. She was incredible. She was an Army brat, beautiful, had an amazing voice. And so my first situation, she moved to LA and she was just doing odd jobs, and she sang at this bar mitzvah, and Ray Parker Jr. was also there playing as well. And he heard her sing. He went nuts and lost his mind. And so he called her manager. He called his manager, and he said, "Listen, you got to hear this girl." And so all of a sudden, out of the blue, her father got a call, and he said, "Listen, there's this guy that's interested in signing my daughter, but I need you to talk to him." So I get on the phone with this guy. This guy, he's a music veteran. I didn't know who he was at the time. So I'm talking to him, and I'm saying, he's like, "Listen, let me talk to her father," because he actually had talked to me, and I'm still green. I'm literally maybe a year out. So he says, "Listen, I don't really think you know who I am, but I will say this. I want to give your daughter an opportunity. I've been out of the music space for a minute, but you need to get another attorney because he doesn't really know what he's doing and this and the other." So luckily, her father says, "Nah. First of all, how he found you and how you found my daughter is because he set my daughter up to move to Los Angeles because he knew that she couldn't do anything where she was living at." So long story short, he puts me back on the phone. He says, "Look, I'm going to try to make this deal as simple as possible. My name is Joe Ruffalo." And I said, "Joe Ruffalo?" Back then, they didn't have access to looking anything up right there on your phone. So at that point, I said, "Well, if you Ray Parker Jr.'s manager, and I know who he is, evidently must be someone important." He says, "Listen, I'm going to give you my attorney's name. My attorney name is John Bronca." I said, "Okay, that's fine." So John Bronca and I got on the phone, and he said, "Listen," he says, "I know you're new." He's, "I'm going to let you deal with one of my associates." And he says, "So we're going to fly you to LA." And we sat down. So Joe said, "Listen, meanwhile, while you're doing that, I'm going to go and talk to one of my friends who used to, that runs Interscope." He says, "His name is Jimmy IV, and I'm going to highlight him real quick, take him to lunch. And I have a distribution deal in an hour." I'm like, "All right, whatever." At this point,
right.
I'm in this huge conference room on, off of in Hollywood and Vine or wherever it was. And I'm sitting down, and we get the deal done. Okay, get the deal done. They're super nice. I, make sure everything was a single with an option for an album, whatever. Joe Ruffalo, just for the record, was one of the executive producers of Purple Rain. Number one. Let's start there.
I recognize the last name.
John Bronca is Michael Jackson's estate attorney.
Wow.
And so he was one of the largest big players. That's my point where I'm going with this. Right, so I got thrown into the deepest part of the ocean quickly, and that was an amazing deal. And since then, and I got actually I just counted it up now. I got about maybe 1,300 deals underneath my belt over the last 26 years, give or take. And that encompasses reality shows, movies, scripts, things of that nature, and again, it depends upon what it is in the industry. But, my job, and it's always my job, is, as you said at the top of the show, making sure that we take care of the artist, making sure that we understand what the artist is looking for. And that's never changed.
Right. Okay. So with that being said, what have been some of your challenges, across the years of dealing with situations at hand and, being professional, but at the same token, just having different challenges? What have been some of those?
Well, the consistent challenge is the color of my skin. Let's be clear about that. Even at this point, even after so many years of being able to beat the pavement, certain individuals still think that, the other side can do a better job. And, it's all about relationships in this business. Lawyers run the business like songwriters are the epitome. Without a songwriter, there is there's no record. Without an attorney and without legal representation, things go left, things go right. If you take a look at most of the record labels, they're ran by entertainment attorneys that work in legal affairs at one point, or were amazing managers that have migrated over into the corporate side of the business. But I think the biggest obstacle for me is getting the client to understand what they are in front of. This is a business, first and foremost. Let's be clear about that. Record labels are basically banks. Their goal is to basically give you a certain amount of money, and they're looking to get a return on their money. Now that the industry has changed a little bit, artists now have the best way of moving. But when you say you're independent, the challenge of being independent is, guess what? Everything now falls on you. You have no clue what that particular brand was doing to get you to a certain point and what they had to indulge with or absorb financially. Normally out of 10 artists, normally only 2 or 3 do well, and the other 7 don't even break even. But the other 2 or 3 cover the spread for the other artists that don't do well, And, I just think from a challenge perspective, it's just really getting that point across that in this business, it's okay to do other things other than be an artist. Sometimes you have to throw the towel in if it's not working, and you have to pivot into another direction in order to be able to identify another area that you're good at. Everybody's not cut to be an artist. Everyone's not cut to be a manager. You just got to find your lane and you got to run it. But this is a difficult business. Business. See,
I'm glad you said that. So do you think that the artists, the ones that actually have the consistency, they may have not gone platinum the first time or gold the second time, but they have that consistency and, a career? Do you think that's because they're more business minded, or do you think it's because of the team and the support system behind them?
It's a hybrid model, first and foremost. It's a little bit of both. When you have an artist that,
you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. I said it's a hybrid model. So what happens is, with an artist that is consistent with their grind, eventually Mother Nature is going to work with you, and the powers that be is going to kind of flip in your direction. But it may not be exactly what you want. You got to be open to whichever way you're going to. That's the most important thing. With a great team, which I have an incredible team. I have an incredible team of different backgrounds. Folks coming from the real estate space, some coming from managing other major artists that are now on board, and I have folks that literally connect the dots. But you can't do it by yourself. And an artist has to take ownership and accountability of where they fail. It can't be on your team. There's got to be a point to where, because I've seen so many artists that literally you'll spend tens of thousands of dollars on them. And then either someone gets locked up or someone gets pregnant or someone says, you know what, I don't even want to do this no more. And there's no safety net for the people that put that money up on behalf of that artist. And then when that artist wants to get back into it again, they go up on someone else's bandwagon and spend their money. Meanwhile, they're not spending anything on their own. So, you know, you got to filter and you got to identify. It's almost like, you know, applying for a job. You know, you got to hit certain metrics. If those metrics aren't met, then you can't even get through the interview process. You know, but some of us, we believe more in the artists than they do in themselves. And sometimes you got to check that. And sometimes you got to temperature check it all the way through the process. You can't just check it one time. You have to check it on a constant basis just to make sure that your investment is still solid.
Yeah. And see, that's what most of the time it is. It's investment. And either the artist is investing in themselves or the label's investing into the artist. You know, so it's good when you can both invest. Like the artist can actually invest in themselves.
But that's the new wave. That's the new wave right now.
Yeah.
You know, that's the new wave. It's not even about whether or not you can put up. It's about where are you at this point, because the music industry is so diluted with just music that honestly maybe 10 years ago wouldn't even made it to an A&R's doorstep. But because of social media, you know, and perfect example is this weekend at Rolling Loud. You know, you had a lot of artists that, you know, are on that stage because their followings are huge, you know, but from a creative space, you know, that 6.5 one does any other. You know, everybody has a personal preference when it comes to that. But when it comes to just literally looking at the landscape of the music industry right now, it's about how many followers you have, what's your engagement. Algorithms play a major role. And think about it. There's really no A&R in the game no more. You know?
No, it's really not. Okay, so going into that, how important, because I try to tell artists, independent artists, this all the time, Instagram. How important is Instagram right about now to the business and as far as on your I call it a resume, because every big person that I've talked to, like on a major scale, has asked me what my Instagram numbers look like or what's your Instagram. They just ask you what it is. So as far as social media as a whole, but Instagram on the back end, how important is that for artists?
Well, in terms of IG is the most socially accepted, but it's not the most important metric anymore. The most important metric is definitely TikTok. It's definitely a few other up and coming sites that we need to stay on top of, because that's where folks are getting locked in on. IG is good because that's, again, what most people know about. But these youngsters out here, they getting it. You know, TikTok, a lot of these guys, they getting 7-figure deals because they're also, what's also included in their deal is some form of sponsorship, some sort of an endorsement piece. So any major record labels already seeing that. And normally these folks are already locked in with other movements. You know, think about CTE, you know, think about TDE. Most of these young entrepreneurs, you know, shout out to Gotti, you know, shout out to Kendrick and this whole squad. You know, these guys, they got the cheat code. They clearly understand that when you come to a label, you're only coming to them for one reason. Give me the bag so I can go and I can do what I need to do, but I'm still going to retain ownership of what I'm in front of, and we're going to really have a joint venture. That's a true joint venture all the way through. You know, so shout out to Black Youngster, 42 Doug, Little Skies, you know, and the list goes on. These guys are out here, you know, Little TJ, they getting it. And I love these
young
kids,
entrepreneurs.
Man, they understand it. Right.
Yeah.
And they unapologetically are getting it.
Right. And that's the thing is, like, you have to okay, so how important is it for artists, up and coming CEO or label exec to educate themselves on, you know, how important is that?
Professional development is the epitome of everything. You know, anyone that's got a professional license, if you sell a life insurance, if you're a real estate broker, if you are an accountant, there are what they call continuing learning education credits. You have to have that in order to be able to stay in good standing with whatever it is that you do. So if that's what's needed in that regard, and especially with the way the industry is changing right now after the pandemic, Lord knows the industry took a complete 360. Whoever would have known that publishing would have led the most important part of the music space. Prior to the pandemic, people selling catalogs, you heard about it. That was the main topic for 2020.
Yeah,
you know,
it was.
So, that's a whole nother conversation there. But, in answer to your question, personal development and business development are very, very, very important. There's certain sites like Skillsoft. There's certain sites like Percepio. There's certain, personal websites and personal training development courses that folks can take, that's going to give them an opportunity to be able to lock in and understand it. Listen, even when LeBron, when Maverick became LeBron's partner, LeBron made sure he sent him to Harvard Business School because he clearly knew that in order to be able to deal with the powers that be, the credentials and having those, those titles to a certain degree are very important.
Right. So, okay, the first time me and you talked on the phone physically, you educated me like right then and there. And it was funny because up until me and you talked, and that's what I admired about you and gave, and respected the fact that it was all about your knowledge and experience, knew that, this guy knew what he was talking about. One of the conversations that we had was about numbers and as far as, publishing and people trying, let's say, I would just say this, independent artists trying to get publishing deals without numbers, without sales. So the conversation, I don't know if you remember it, but I came to you and this is what I'm trying to get for my company. And you was like, you asked me like the $1 million question. And you was like, is your company making this amount of money? And if so, do you, in order for you to go into the business room, the big room with the big boys, this is what you're going to have. So could you explain a little bit about kind of what we were talking about, on a smaller scale, like, and what these publishing companies and these big major record labels really want from these independent artists?
Well, I think the most important thing is you got to understand the music industry does not have a 401k plan. Okay, let's start there. Okay, your 401k plan is your publishing. Okay, the problem with a lot of artists that are great songwriters is that when they're in the studio, they're not getting their split sheets done immediately. They're not. That's the very beginning. While you're there in real time, whether or not the record goes anywhere or not, if the record was recorded and all parties are in the room, sign the damn split sheet. Okay, and make sure you register it, number one. Number two, one of the big issues that a lot of artists have is that they're not a member of every PRO available. Most of us are ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, but there's so many other PROs outside of the United States that as an artist, if you know you're popping in a certain country, you need to be a member of that PRO. I'm gonna tell you why. You can't count on ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC to collect all of your publishing. Number one. And number two, if you did, you're only going to get maybe anywhere between 45 and 50%. And the thing is that there's something called a black box in the music industry. There's millions and millions of dollars that are left unaccounted for because certain PROs don't communicate or they take forever to pay on the American side. So let's say, for instance, your dashboard says you're doing very well in certain countries. You want to make sure that you become a member of that PRO. Now, in reference to what we were discussing, in order for your publishing to even be worth anything, you got to identify, number one, how well your publishing is doing out there in a certain space, and more importantly, what those numbers look like. So you got to be able to at least tabulate your first 3 to 5 years of whatever you've got coming in every 90 days. That's the breakdown of how your PROs are paying you. Okay, you got to take a look at your licensing and sync reports. You got to see where your music is being placed, whether it be in a movie, a soundtrack, score, or ultimately in commercials. There's many different revenue streams that make up your publishing. Okay, now, depending upon where you're trying to go, the goal is, what are you trying to do with your publishing? Are you trying to sell it? Are you trying to use it as leverage for a possible deal? The reality is right now, if your publishing isn't worth anything, then you can't realistically think that you're going to get a check from a publishing company unless there's something that they're able to eat off of. Because it's the same metrics as when a record label signs you. If I give you an advance, the goal is for me to get back what I gave you. So if there's there's an admin fee up front, and you get a deal from a publishing company, the goal is for you to be able to get them to administer your publishing. And 9 times out of 10, they want to be able to administer music that's already out there, that's currently either, making money and reverting back. That's almost like you put money down on the house. You got great credit, you can only put down a little bit. But guess what?
Right.
Your mortgage is going to be high as hell, versus just simply just putting down, 20%. And having something that's manageable. But that's kind of where my core competency is right now. That's why I'm a guru in that space. When it comes to publishing, that's what I do. I clearly understand the space, but I also clearly understand what the metrics are. And I'm working with some incredible people. Shout out to Merck, Hypnosis.
Yeah, Merck.
That's the mentor right there. And I've learned so much from him over the last year and a half, just in terms of how deals are structured. You would not be, you'll be shocked, Skrill, at how many artists don't know who owns their publisher or where it's at.
Wow.
Right.
And it does move around. And that's what people, it's exactly what you just said. It's like a house loan. Like you buy the house, 2 days later, you get a notice from another company said they just bought your loan. Well, guess what? It's kind of like the same theory, And that's what I was going into. I was going to ask you, what's the misconception, when it comes to the business and entertainment lawyers?
The misconception. Give me a little bit more definition on that. What do you mean,
like
misconception?
You get, okay, and this was a while back, but I got, an artist that posted something, and he was like, if you could have 3 important things that you could have when you first start your career, which is more important than the other? And it was manager, entertainment lawyer, and I think like a producer or something. It wasn't A&R, it was either a producer or a label head or something.
Okay.
So where I was going with that is like a lot of times people don't really know exactly what lawyers do or entertainment attorneys do. So they do exactly what you said, and they think that my manager can take care of all of this, or my label head can take care of all of this. So that's where I was going with that question.
Okay. Well, I say this first and foremost. I come from a management space. I no longer do that. We have that in-house at the moment, but I tell people all the time, well, Robert, can you manage me? Well, give me something to manage first and foremost. Okay. I can't. What am I managing? I'm not managing your personal lifestyle. That's what I'm definitely not managing. And if there's not enough meat on the bone, we'll come back to you when we see that you take what you're doing seriously. In my space, on the entertainment side, I would say the majority of my income over the last 5 years are people that screwed up. People that went and tried to do a deal without legal representation or just even consultation. Because where I'm at, people can't afford my hourly rate, and they can't afford my general counsel's hourly rate. So we normally do what we call flat rate deals. And a lot of times we get the short end of the stick on that, because someone will pay us a flat fee, and the next thing we know, we're doing more for what we're getting, for what we didn't get paid for, versus the services that we're putting out there. So what we do is we just manage expectations. I think, when someone asks me that question, I would say first producer, because without music, there's really no job for me, in terms of moving forward. So getting a great producer and getting a great songwriter, and it's okay if you don't write. It's okay. If you don't write, but God has given you the ability to sing, then, use that as your tool. Sometimes people try so hard, but yet meanwhile, they don't sit and get comfortable with the gift that was given to them. You understand? I tell people, come and see me when it makes sense. Until then. But one thing I'm big on, as you know, I give advice all the time, because, I get blessings back tenfold from people that I've done things for, and they'll turn me on to somebody else. The next thing I know, that's where, and that's how the team is built, on the MCR side. So, if you don't mind, on a quick shameless plug, shout out to my squad, all the way from Val to, Maria, who holds me down, who's been with me for almost a dozen years. Shout out to G out of Virginia Beach, the president of brand. Shout out to My boy Elroy, who's the bridge connector, he's put me in some crazy situations. That's one thing you're going to find out. You're going to find somebody on your team that is the most unlikeliest person you could think of that will be the epitome. And let me tell you something. I got this guy here, literally, he's connected me with some incredible folks, He's the one that's responsible for putting me down with 300 Entertainment. Shout out to Salim, over 300. Right. I have our distribution through SRG Universal. Shout out to Claude, and that whole team, Create Music Group. We have a unique situation, and we're in a weird space, but we are literally, when we come to the table, we come bearing gifts. And I think that that's the most important part. We don't come with our hands out. We have something that we're in front of, and we are multi-tiered. So literally within a conversation, I can talk to someone that's not even in the music business, and I can tie them back to what it is that we're doing. And that is a unique thing that we do. Rest of the shout out to the rest of the squad. Shout out to Kurt. Shout out to individuals that clearly see the vision and clearly understand. We're in a fintech space. We're in finance and technology. We have people around us. We have financials around us. We have finance people around us that invest in areas of business that are literally second to none. The artists that are even on the brand. You've had a chance to listen to the music.
Yeah, and it's dope. All this. Yeah, one thing I can say is everything that he sent me to listen to, I was like, when's this person coming out? I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Well, shout out to the artists. We have a young lady. Her name is Carter. She's she's originally from Jersey, but she lives in LA, and you've had a chance to hear her voice is incredible. When people hear her, they're gonna lose their mind. We got two artists coming out now. One JR, one Roddy. We got like a Kid Rock with a Limp Bizkit thing going on there. And then JR is going to really be able to go up against any of the youngins that's currently out there right now. So that's what keeps us relevant in the hip hop space. But we have a really strong R&B side. Shout out to King in London. He's doing great things. He's also part of what we're doing. And then ultimately, we got Alade, who's my secret weapon out of Nigeria. And that right there is going to be a whole nother conversation right there. So look out for all of that. Late third, early fourth, going in the first quarter 2022, and we're just pushing the brand. We're pushing the brand. We have a deal with Nickelodeon. We have a licensing and sync deal with Nickelodeon. We are currently, we just did a deal with Major League Baseball for our mascot. I got the shirt on. That's Marty right there. There's just a lot of different things that we're in front of, and, shout out to you for helping me put this sneaker deal together. Appreciate that as well.
Oh man, so there's a lot of great That's things. Why I said like all day, man. And one thing you can say about Robert is that, like he just said, he named probably 5 or 6 different brands in a matter of 30 seconds. So if you're really paying attention to this man, he's well connected. And that comes with time, that comes with experience, so for the listeners, people that are actually tuning in to get some game from you, get some knowledge, like what type of advice on an entrepreneurial would you give to somebody that's up and coming?
I would say stick with your plan. I would say, there's going to be individuals that's going to doubt you all day long. There's going to be folks that are designed to derail you from your game plan, number one, okay? And you got to be tuned in, and you got to know what's going on to stay in the conversation, never give up. Rome wasn't built in a day. I think to myself, I'm in my mid-50s. I have no problem with saying that. I adopt that all day. But half my life I've been doing music, and I'm at that point where I'm taking a look at what I'm in front of, and I'm saying, man, time has passed me by. And I'm looking at just where we are right now, and I'm still in the grind, but I just tell people, just continually follow your heart, follow what you feel is your mission, and don't let anyone dissuade you, and lock in and stay balanced. One of the great things is, shout out to the wife, 21 years married, 26, 27 together. Thanks, man. I'm balanced on that. And I think to me, balancing that part of it is what keeps everything right, because listen, this is a crazy business we're in. And when we leave that, we need to have some sense of normalcy wherever we lay our head. And if you got that, that allows you to be able to be
Yeah.
balanced, recharge, and get back to the game all over again. So that would be my advice to anyone that's wanting to stay in it, because this thing will chew you up. I remember Raphael Sadiq telling me one time, he said it will chew you up, spit you out, and reformat you to eat you again. Okay, so it's just all about just making sure that you connect the dots, man. It's just crazy,
Crazy that you said that. It's crazy that you said that, because I'm doing this class. It's called the Excellence Program. Sean Puffy Combs put it on along with some other people. One of his advisors asked him, was the same question I asked you, and he said basically the same thing. Let nobody dissuade you, man, because in this industry or in life, that's what people do. That's what they good at. They good at dissuading people, and I was talking to a real estate broker one time, and she said the thing that's going to bother is, she said, is that because people are going to want you to quit. They're going to expect you to quit. They're going to be waiting for the day that you know what I'm saying? So with you, and you have, what keeps you going? What keeps you driving, with that force and that motivation to keep it going? What keeps that? What is that? What keeps that fuel going?
I think the thrill of the chase. I'm at the point in my career where I'm unapologetic about the way I move. I do consider myself an OG, in terms of what I do. The advice that I give people, I'm only going to tell you once or twice. And if you grab it, you grab it. If you don't, you don't. I'm really big on paying it forward. So that I go back to what I said earlier before. I give out a ton of advice, not just legal. I'm now pivoting toward more of, I'm picking and choosing the fights that I'm in front of. I'm very selective about what I get in front of right now. And I'm really all about wanting to see what I'm in front of. I want to take it to the next level, and I want to see people that I'm around succeed. It just, that to me is about just seeing the joy of someone being able to get to a certain finish line and doing it together as a unit, but making sure that you don't have no weak links in your unit, making sure that if you are leading, you're leading with a purpose. You're open to suggestions, you're open to ideas, but make sure that what you bring is part of a solution, not part of a criticism. But part of a solution, and I think that when people see that and they understand it, and just literally being available to give other individuals an opportunity, and always keeping the door open, because I think that as a what's the word I'm looking for? Not a species, but just as a race, we're not we don't know enough about the business of music. That's the problem. We always feel like we got to be on the artistic side. And it's like, I had a conversation with the CEO of the brand today. We were on a conference call, and it was 5 brothers on the phone, and we were talking about a multi-million-dollar deal on an app that one of them built out. And he said what's crazy is there's no other folks on this call of another color, and it was all brothers getting it in. And that was a beautiful thing. So I strive to see more of that. And I'm going to use my platform, whatever it may be, to try to do that. And, I strongly recommend anyone that if they're interested in getting any kind of information, or they just want to know things, there's plenty of resources out there that they can go to. And I think that enough of us don't use our resources. I think that some of us allow our ego, and we allow our inability to want to just connect with people. That's the death of us. And you got to open your mouth. Right. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Absolutely, all day long. I say it all the time. So going into the end of our conversation, what future projects do you have going on? Anything upcoming that you can tell the listeners about to look forward to or be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I'll start with the brand first and foremost. So MCR's got a couple of projects coming out. Like I said, we have Validate coming out in Nigeria. He's an amazing artist. He's a songwriter. He's a producer, and he's also an artist, songwriter, and producer, 3 out of that. And then we got JR and Roddy. They're coming out of the DC area. Look for their videos. We just shot that in Los Angeles. Videos are crazy. Look for Carter's first single to come out late maybe late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and we're gonna put out another single prior to the end of the year, and then on top of the 2022 is when her full project will come out. When it comes to movies, we're in front of about maybe 3 or 4 different situations. I represent a screenwriter right now that's currently got about 5 scripts that's being looked at by MGM, Balboa, which is Sylvester Stallone's production company. We got about maybe 4 or 5 different things going on there, and then we're also within the merch area as well, but we also have Marty, who is the focal point of our label. We're the first label, well, one of the first labels, let me just put it out that way. We're one of the first labels where we have a mascot that's actually our logo, but it's also really the epitome of our label. He's like a futuristic Martian,
right?
But he's an A&R Martian. And Nickelodeon, shout out to those guys, Nick Animation, they clearly saw the vision, and the team, shout out to the team, they wrote a backstory on it, and it allowed us to get a licensing and sync deal from Nickelodeon. So we're currently right now looking to shoot a television show similar to like Alf that's going to be surrounded on him. And then from there, we got a couple other things going on. Yeah. So dope, things are coming together. Next time we chime back in, I have some more updates on that. But yeah, there's a lot of great things happening, man. Just taking it day by day, brother. Taking it day by day.
Yeah, you know? Well, you blessed, man. And I appreciate the opportunity. You know, if I having you on the show, full of technical difficulties, but you know how that is when you're doing anything online. So if the listeners want to contact you, find you on social media.
Well, on the legal side, excuse me, on the legal side, you can go to www.randrentertainment.com. And we will be relaunching our website, which is for the record label, which is www.officialmcr.com.
Okay. So R&R entertainment.com.
Correct.
And then
on
what you said, the official.
No, officialmcr.com.
Recording. Okay.
No, official. Right. Yeah, officialmcr.com.
Okay, officialmcr.com.
That's correct.
But yeah, like I said, we want to thank you for being on the show today, man. You know, we're going to top it up, of course, as we always do. Listeners, tune in.
Yes.
I will put this out on every platform, as I always do, LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, on all 3. And then, of course, it'll be on my YouTube channel, Skrilltown Talk. But yeah, man, we appreciate it. And for the listeners, we appreciate you guys chiming in and tuning in. And until next time, we are out. God bless. Thanks again. I will wrap with you soon, man. Appreciate it. Thanks.